Hello everyone, Bardic Nerd here, and I am starting a new Let's Play of Millennia, a grand strategy 4X game in the vein of Civilization and games of that nature, but a bit more detailed and involved, in my opinion. Released a few months ago, was not completely as polished as it might have been, perhaps, but has been getting a lot of improvements since. The developers have been doing a lot of work post-release on it, and I think it's in a fairly good state. There's still work to be done, but it's a very fun game, and I think there's a lot of value to it. So I'm gonna be playing as Britain here and seeing what I can do to rule the world, rule the waves maybe. Naval gameplay isn't usually extremely important in this, which is common for a lot of Civ style 4X games, but I've selected the three continents map style, which does make it a little bit more important than some of the default stuff. So we'll see. And I'm going to, if it works, out for what we have in terms of starting location and terrain and stuff. Select some idea groups, traditions as they're called, that are a bit more focused on exploration. So let's get into things, exploring a bit with our warbands. Now they just released a small expansion, jungle over here, that allows you to start as a nomadic band in the Ice Age, which introduces some additional complexity to the game and some additional variables. That means you have to strategize a bit differently. I'm not doing that particular start at this time, but I'll do a Let's Play of that at some other time. That does introduce a lot more complexity in some ways, so let's start out with this. The normal start. Okay, well, we've got a little bit of lay of the land over here. We got coast over here. We got a jungle over here, desert down here, forest over there. Let's see what else we've got. Okay. Hey, a tribal village up there. That's always useful. Great. Alright, I should have actually had this working in the forest from the beginning, so I get some resources to build stuff faster, but I didn't. That was my bad. It is important early on to micromanage stuff a little bit. Let's see, what do we have here? We can get exploration XP and the location of 2 tribal camps, or warfare XP and the location of 2 barbarian camps. Exploration XP is going to be a bit more important for us at this stage, and knowing tribal camps is, I think, more valuable. Barbarian camps at this stage mostly just gives you places you want to avoid, whereas the tribal camps are goodies you want to work to find. Let's get tribal farming to increase our food. And let's see here. Now we have culture power, which at this stage should basically always be local reforms, which will for 8 turns. Basically make everything here, make this give 25% more resources for 8 turns, which is going to, so the other option, create town, is not really useful yet. It's useful later on, very useful, but Eureka gives right now +5 knowledge, instantly. Local reforms gives over time 4 knowledge, while also giving a bunch of other things. So local reforms is a bit more powerful right now. Later on, well, right now local reforms is very powerful. Later on, as the game progresses, local reforms will get much less powerful relative to other things, both because other abilities become more potent, and because the amount of your income in any given year, you'll have like less cities that you can do you'll have more cities, and local reforms only affects one city, so it's affecting a smaller portion of your income stream, and most of these cities later on will be getting a large portion of their income from things that are not affected by local reforms, because they're getting them from goods, and the goods are not affected by local reforms. Only the static incomes that you get. But in the early game, local reforms is extremely powerful, and you should basically always do it. Right. So grab that. Let's see. Okay, we got Scout over here. Let's go up here. So I selected as a bonus for my Civ extra movement for Scout units. So normally the Scout would have 30 movement, but instead I get 40 movement on them, which is very nice. Okay, so we got. Alright, let's see. Let's start on one more Scout. Let's grab this here. And government XP is extremely useful, especially at this stage of the game. So we're gonna take that, and here's another, and more government XP. Very good, because that means we can now just grab oral history, which means that our homeland, which is the first city we've built, will produce an extra 1 knowledge, which is, because we have local reforms up, actually 1.25 knowledge. So that means we get our tech a little bit faster, which at this stage of the game is really, really important. Getting tech faster is important at all stages of the game, but you really want a tech rush right at the start. So we have choices to make now. Scouting is a good tech to get. It'll give us a free scout, which is very useful. It'll allow us to build the lookout building, which is a nice building that gives a little bit of defense for the city it's built in. Means you have better border vision, and allows your units to move through jungle and deep forest, which is useful, especially because I have a jungle near me, so I want to be able to move through it. Tribal Elders is just lets you build a science building. It is basically, in basically every single case, the first tech you want to research. But now we have choices. Unless you're pursuing an aggressive strategy, you don't really need to take defenses right away. You'll want that at some point, but not right away. Farming is a useful tech, and right now it's a bit cheaper because other nations have researched it. Um, is good, and it will allow us to do things we want to do. Food stockpile is useful. Plantation is good, and farm are both good. Those are good things. Workers can be good. I'm not sure it's as useful in our situation. Scouting is generally always useful. I think I'm gonna get scouting first. Yeah. Alright, let's see. We have 6 improvement points, so let's build a hunting camp here. Which will mean that we're getting a bit more food and growing slightly faster. And then next we'll probably build a dock over there. And that'll be useful. Alright. Let's see. Let me find. Alright, let's see. Hills over there. Hills are good things. Desert. Desert is kind of slightly annoying. If you have large amounts of desert, it can potentially be useful because there's a tradition that makes use of it, but just having small amounts of desert is probably not really great. Not enough to be useful, but enough to be annoying, which is unfortunate, but, well, what can you do? Alright, let's go down here, I guess, and let's council to research faster. Okay, barbarians over there. Try to not really engage with them because that's just going to slow us down. They're not going to actually kill us right now, and it doesn't matter really whether we attack them or they attack us, but us attacking them is going to slow us down from exploring, and exploring is what we want to be doing right now. Oh, we have scouting now. Oh, a landmark. Another tribal village. Excellent. Okay, scouting. Farming is much cheaper, and while workers is a useful tech, because it gives us a bunch of improvement points. I think I'm gonna have to go with farming because it's so much cheaper right now. And I want to get to the next age quick. So, alright. Alright. Good. So let me show you what combat looks like in this game. So we'll take turns attacking. This is them, and this is me. It's kind of certain units go before other units, but units that go at the same rate, it's sort of randomized which side goes first. Because I'm in the first, I get a bit of defense adjustment, so I was actually doing slightly better here. But basically, like, attack back and forth and do some damage to each other based on their attack, the attack value of the unit that is making the attack in the combat, not the army that has attacked the other, but the unit that is in that combat making an attack on the defense value of the unit that is defending against its attack. It's a bit complicated, but it's fairly interesting, I think. Okay, great. I've got scouts that I can do stuff with. Here, and let's go to the landmark. And that discovering landmarks gives your scouts XP, gives you some exploration XP, and if you discover enough of them, it can be useful for certain things. If you discover 3 landmarks, then you can go to an alternate age, the heroic age, instead of the age of Iron, the Iron Age. Instead of the Iron Age, you can go to the heroic age, which allows you to do some alternate stuff, and it's kind of cool. Landmarks can potentially be useful for other things later on too. See here. Knowledge or culture. I think I'm gonna take the knowledge right now. Okay, Bronze Age. 5 turns to get to the Bronze Age, which should get me there before anyone else, which is wonderful. Getting to be the first person to reach an age is always good. Because you get a bonus when you are the first to reach an age. And then you're also ahead of other people. And you're the one that selects what age it's going to be, because there are possible options for different ages, and being the one to decide which age it will be is generally a good thing. Quite a big jungle. Jungle is equivalent to forest in most respects. And forest is a useful terrain type. Having this much is gonna be a big boon to me, actually. Because the lumber industry is really, really good. Because, well, what do you do with wood? A lot of really useful things, like make lumber, which gives you production, but also you make paper out of it, and paper is really important later on. Let me tell you, paper's important. So having a bunch of forest is really good, and it'll boost production by a lot. Okay, so I can get exploration XP or a scout cavalry. 20 exploration XP will spawn a scout cavalry if you want. But you can do other stuff with exploration XP too. Right now I think the scout cavalry is probably more valuable. So this is a neutral independent city down here. There are a number on the map. Another landmark. Hey, that's nice. Okay, and there's another village right there. Okay. Says, okay, well, let's see here. So, okay. I'm getting the lay of the land here. So let's see, anyone else gonna, yeah, no one else is even close to entering Age of Bronze. So, let's see, at this point, we have 1 turn left on the local reforms, so we're gonna wait a turn because culture will just stockpile. There's no max culture. It'll just go over the fill indefinitely. So you can just continue to stockpile it, and you don't have to use it at any particular time. Excellent. There's another tribal camp. Let's get a warband. Oh, now we are kind of at our max. So we want to be our maintenance. Yeah. Alright. Let's go for this landmark. Great. Yeah, excellent. Let's get this guy back in the direction of homeward so we can heal. We'll slowly wander around this way, I guess. And we're almost to that reformed, which will be useful. Great. And we get, let's take the exploration XP. It's gonna be better for us than warfare XP at this point. Alright. Let's see here. Okay. Right. And yes, now we want to do another local reforms. And as you see, the culture you need to get, every time you use the culture power, the culture you need to get in order to use the culture power again increases. But hopefully the culture your culture income is increasing over time, hopefully. Alright, let's see here. A lot of forests. That's good. That's good. Not a lot of hills, which it's not terrible, but is unfortunate in some ways. It means we won't have some resources and some strategies that we might have otherwise been able to employ. We won't be able to. Okay. Let's get the production. Okay. Bunch of neutral places over here. We're gonna want to try to get hold of them at some point. Now we could spawn a scout, but we don't need any more scouts really, and we want to save that exploration XP for something else. Right. Well, we're gonna mostly use the scouts to explore and have the war bands start to organize into military, but we'll want to supplement that with archers once we are able to build them. But we will need defenses to build archers, which we will probably research after we get to the Age of Bronze. Alright. Another landmark. Wow. Sometimes you discover this many landmarks, but oftentimes not. It's not super unusual, but it's not an every game thing. So my exploration game is going reasonably well this game. I've had games where it's even better. but this is fairly nice in terms of that. And okay, great. Not actually worried about anyone beating me to Age of Bronze, so I'm actually gonna do get the improvement points, I think. That'll allow me to build a dock there, which will give me, because the first dock I built, it'll give me a free utility ship, which I can take up there, giving me a little bit of scouting, and showing me I have these fishies up here, and then I'll next turn be able to use him to gather and remotely get fish for Manchester, which will be very nice, because fish provides a lot of food. Actually, it's a very useful early game. Not as useful later on because there's no production chain involving fish. Most of the land-based resources, you have production chains involving them, so they're not as good early on, but then you have production chains that make them much more valuable. And most of the land-based resources, most of them you get better improvements with later tech that will allow you to extract increasing amounts of them. That is somewhat the case for fish, but less the case. I think next, so there's a few options here. The Lookout is a defensive building that will provide passive exploration XP. Palisade Wall is a defensive building that provides some unrest reduction, but we don't really need that right now. We don't really need unrest reduction right now. It'll be a while till we get unrest. Town Center provides government XP, which is very useful. Food Stockpile gives you extra food. More importantly, it gives you a region level, and your population is capped by a region's region level. So it's 5 population per region level you have. Start with 1 region level, and there are a few buildings that give you region levels, and there's also towns that give you region levels. Your main source is probably going to be towns, which we're going to look into doing pretty soon. We might actually be looking at this before we get a town. Let me see. So I'm going to want a town right there, I think, so that I can make a lumber town with 4 lumber. On that, I'm gonna need probably Pioneer 4. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna want to. It's gonna be a little while, so I think I'm gonna want the food stockpile. The Dolmen gives you a border expansion, which is super important, actually. Very, extremely important. So that's probably what I'm gonna do after that. Alright, okay, alright. There. Let's have this guy go there. There. Alright, now, I can get, tribalism. So, once I have the opportunity to get, a more advanced government, which will come in Age 3, the Iron Age, or Age of Heroes, if I go to that, or the, whatever the, Age of Blood is the Crisis Age for Age 3. But I don't think that's gonna happen. Then, I'll be able to reform to a better government, and in the meantime, it gives me innovation, which is a great thing. amazing thing, and it also gives me a little bit more culture, so I'm gonna get that quicker. Alright. And here we go. We have the Bronze Age. So we get new national spirits. Vassals integrate twice as fast. Barbarian warlords may appear, which is unfortunate. Innovation and chaos events may appear. Trade and diplomatic conflicts are available. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. Alright, so, let's take a look at our research. So we could research something from the Age of Bronze, which are those very useful things. We want to get them. But these things have also become a little bit cheaper because you get a discount on things from a previous age, and also other people have researched them, which makes them cheaper also. I think we first want to get workers first, and then defenses. They should both be pretty quick. And let's see about a national spirit. So, this is our first big choice. There's not a lot of bad choices for the Age 2 national spirits. There are some, or rather some that are usually bad choices, but in the right situation can be decent. Olympians is one of the kind of weird ones. You get some stuff regardless, but it's much better if you have relationships with other civilizations, and if those civilizations are halfway decent. But there's it's okay, regardless, I think. But it's, messengers, gets you, messengers which are similar to envoys there, but I think they're like, I'm not actually quite sure. Okay, they go to minor nations and they get population for your homeland, and convert them into outposts, which is interesting. I have not actually played messengers yet, and it would be interesting to explore it. I should try it sometime. I think it could be pretty interesting. It looks like it has some interesting potential. It is generally better for you. It gets better stuff when you have llamas available, which are special resource llamas, and they're like the weavers that you can build later on to do stuff with the wool you gather from llamas and sheep, and the cotton and flax you can also gather and use the weavers and the weavers will give you more culture if you have this. So it has some good stuff in it. God King Dynasty is one that is often considered not to be very good. But in the right situation, there's some decent stuff. faster expansion to hills. If you have a lot of hills, that's useful. Most of the stuff is really not very good, but situationally it can be decent. It can be decent situationally. It can enable some strategies that might be more difficult otherwise, but it's not really a great one usually. Raiders is generally considered, if you're going for an aggressive strategy, Raiders is generally considered probably the best. It's very good if you want to just conquer the world early on, or at least conquer all the world that you can get to by foot early on. It's very good for that. Very good for that. Probably unmatched in terms of that. Warriors is, but Raiders kind of does not have, aside from the fact that you are able to use it to make a lot of conquests early on, it does not really have a huge amount of lasting impact, because basically it all just affects your Raiders, and they are going to be obsolete in an age 2 at most. Warriors is a military-focused one that is a bit more defensive-focused, but not as geared for conquering territory, but will make your military a lot better, actually, and will have more lasting impact. Military drills, especially, is very good. Your units will passively gain experience, which is kind of amazing for if you can spare the time to have your military wait for a while, which, if you have military units you've built up early on, later on you'll be able to upgrade them into modern units, and they will be fully experienced, which will be really useful. So it's very good if you want a military thing. Wild hunters can be amazing in the right situation. If you have a lot of scrubland, which I have some of, particularly scrubland with the game resource. Particularly scrubland with the game resource. It improves that substantially. Usually I consider the game resource not worth, I consider it, I just ignore it after like age 3 or so. But this means that it is relevant until the end game, basically, because it makes meat much more useful, gives you more food from meat. Also, the innovation that this enables gives you culture from meat, which is super powerful, and gives you improvement points from bone and ivory, which is very useful. And it allows you to build bow hunters, which are a very good early game combat unit. Reveals elephants, which is like game, basically. It's essentially like game. Gives ivory instead of bone, which ivory gives exploration XP, and will also give meat, as I recall. So it is quite good in the right situation. Mound Builders is regarded generally as one of the best, rightfully, The food needed per population is a lot less. Increases all your region levels, so you can sustain higher populations. Lets you build burial mounds, which is a decent improvement. It's not amazing, but it's pretty decent. I mean, they give you 2 culture, and also sanitation, and with the innovation, also improvement points, which is actually quite nice. It's just finding, like, having the space to build a lot of them can be difficult. But if you are able to build a lot of them, that's very nice, and you can build towns that specialize in them and get extra sanitation, which is really, really nice. The 50% food needs for your population is just amazing. It is a lot better if you don't have much grassland. It's still nice, but if you only have this much grassland, it's not anywhere near as good, because you're not going to be able to make great use of the burial mounds. So you're getting the 50% food requirements, which is nothing to sneer at. And the +1 region level, which is nice. But there can be other things that are more powerful economically. Naturalist is potentially really good if you have a lot of forest. It's really good. It will allow you to expand faster in forest, which is very, very useful, because forest, it takes a little bit more time to expand into it, and this will expand faster into forest, and forest is an extremely powerful terrain. The terrain, you'll be defending more strongly in forest tiles, which is useful situationally. You move faster through forest. That's situationally very useful. Get some extra housing. That's not really very useful. But housing improvements give a bit of food. It's nice. Unimproved tiles yield additional food. That's quite good. In the early game. Later on in the game, that's entirely useless. But in the early game, it's very nice. Later on, it becomes entirely useless. You also gain the innovation gives you a small amount of housing from foraging unimproved forest tiles, which, again, early game, really good. Becomes useless later on. Foraging unimproved forest tiles gives you culture. Super, super, super powerful early game. Later on becomes useless. But so this can give you some really nice early game leads. Is generally not going to be very valuable later game. So then there's also Ancient Seafarers, which if you're not near water, is pretty darn useless. It's pretty darn useless if you're not near water. But if you have a decent bit of coastline, or if you're on an island, playing the islands map, then is definitely a thing to consider. You expand faster into water tiles. That's if you're able to use water tiles, that's very useful. Early ships are stronger. That's nice. Not usually at all important, but nice. Lets you spawn utility ships cheaper. That's decent. That's decent early on. Because utility ships will allow you to gather stuff from outside your cities. So that's nice. The utility ships will have more movement and defense, which will help protect them from barbarians. Reveals the shells and special good on the water. So some water has shells, and this reveals that, and yeah, they're really good. They're quite good. They give 6 gold, and you're also going to get regular fish from the same tile. And the innovation boosts the output from shells by 1 food. So effectively, each shell tile will give you 5 food and 6 gold, which is nothing to sneer at. Nothing to sneer at. Of course, you're rolling the die to see how many you get. This will also improve the docks. These docks give some sight range and have a bit of production, which if you have a lot of coast that you're building docks on, that's not bad at all. It's not amazing, but it's not at all bad. And this one, fishing improvements plus 1 gather. So in the early game, if you're getting a lot of your food from the water, you're almost doubling the food you're getting in the early game. Now this is going to drop off later on, but it's still going to be useful all game. And of course it only affects stuff from the water, from fishing improvements, which does affect the shells. With this, a shell tile will bring you 10 food and 12 gold, which is really good for the work of 1 pop. That's really good. It's not always amazingly powerful, but it can be very useful, economically speaking. It's probably not, generally the best thing, but it can be if you have a decent stretch of water. It can be actually very useful, and makes your docks much more powerful. And docks are a good thing to have because they generate exploration XP, and so you'll go through the tree quicker and have a lot of exploration XP that you're generating later on. So I am actually going to choose this. Partially because I'm doing a little bit of a themed playthrough this time and trying to go for exploration and water themed stuff, and partially because I think it's one of my better options in this particular case. So let's select it, and call it the C to get faster expansion, and we're gonna try to get the shells as soon as we can, and hopefully some will pop up over here. Alright. That is as far as I'm going to go with this particular run through. So I will pick up next time with Age 2, and we'll see how that goes. Until then, take care.